Good evening, everyone. This is Michael Ramelli here at the Hurricane Outlook and Discussion for September 3rd, 2019, recorded around 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Hurricane Dorian Hurricane Dorian continues its advance towards the north and west right now at about 6 miles an hour, pulling away from the Grand Bahamian Islands now from Grand Bahama, lashing the Florida East Coast with tropical storm and near hurricane force gusts at times. We've seen the buoy about 20 nautical miles offshore of Cape Canaveral gusting to 64 knots or 74 miles per hour. So somewhere at about in here, you're getting these hurricane force gusts, and that will start to translate closer to the coast overnight as Dorian continues to march off towards the north and west here. So you can see right now, this is the tropical storm force winds, and tropical storm force winds extend out 175 miles from the center. And Dorian is lashing portions of the Florida East Coast with this tropical storm force winds. Now, something we have monitored throughout the day is these little wobbles that Dorian has kind of encountered. Dorian has sort of come up through here and done some wobbles, and the overall motion of Dorian is towards the northwest at about 6 miles an hour. But any wobble toward the left or right has impacts to how much impacts the Florida East Coast sees. We are not currently expecting any landfalls at this time, and it is looking as a more likely track offshore right now, staying roughly 60 or 70 miles or so offshore. However, the longer it takes to make that turn off towards the north and eventually towards the north-northwest and eventually northeast will dictate exactly what impacts will be felt elsewhere across portions of the eastern Florida coast and portions of the Florida Peninsula north of the Orlando metro. Speaking of that, we have this precip shield that has begun to get inland here just a little bit, and this will continue to dump roughly about 2 to 4 inches of rain, potentially more, and this will also create more squalls that will eventually radiate outwards. So the Orlando metro, eastern Orange County, back towards the east, the I-95 corridor. Basically looking at squally conditions overnight with gusts to hurricane force on the coast and gusts to near 60 miles an hour further inland, including the Orlando metro, and further northward you could see easily gusts to 40 or 60 in some of the squalls that come through. And you can see these squalls that will be coming through as Dorian continues its approach off towards the northwest. These squalls will radiate inwards and create flooding and dangerous winds. I know there's a couple people along the coast, a couple counties. Brevard County is one of them, and I think the coastal Volusia east of the Halifax River is under curfews for tonight. Osceola County is under a curfew. Interesting to note, though, the Weather Service office in Melbourne did cancel the tropical storm warning for Osceola. The Weather Service office in Tampa Bay, Ruskin, canceled the tropical storm watch for their area. So it is now basically just Orange County, Lake County, portions of Marion, and of course all the way up here with hurricane and tropical storm warnings along the coast. The recon plane that is in there sampled a pressure of about 959 millibars and moving a little bit due north, but that's probably a wobble. The overall motion is roughly northwest at about 6 miles an hour. These winds extend far out from the center. There's far-reaching effects from Dorian, and portions of the Grand Bahama Island is still experiencing near hurricane force winds at this time. So a very dangerous situation still for those islands. We've heard from Josh Morgan, a well-renowned chaser. He is okay from Marsh Island. So that is some certainly good news there. But portions of the Bahamian Islands are still getting hit pretty hard from Dorian. But it's good news that Dorian is starting to turn away from there and start to move away. You can see here, this is also another thing, the wind field, and we just showed this on a slightly previous map earlier, but you can see the wind field expanse of the tropical storm force winds well inland along portions of the Florida East Coast, right now the southern Florida East Coast, and excuse me, as Dorian kind of moves up like that, there will be more rain bands and more tropical storm force winds inland. So tropical storm force winds will likely get inland later tonight for portions of eastern Orange County. If we go back here to the radar here, basically eastern Orange, east of from the Orlando metro eastward, you could see potential impacts there from any of these squalls that come in, and even into Leesburg and Lake County, western Orange County for sure. Could see some of those impacts from Dorian. The satellite presentation loop, I'm not really sure that this is an eye. I'm more convinced that this is a dry air intrusion. There's a lot of dry air that's been wrapping around kind of the backside of Dorian and making its way into the eye. It has tried to wrap some deeper convection around the center now, so that we'll have to watch. Also, the Weather Prediction Center did put out a graphic concerning basically from what the areas we were talking about, eastern Orange County through the Space Coast, Brevard and Volusia, and portions of Flagler counties, that there's a broadening northwestern quadrant precip shield, and you could see rainfall amounts, you know, over 1 to 1.5 inches, suggesting, you know, occasional 1 inch totals in an hour. About I-95 in eastward, Cape Canaveral, you could see 2 to 4 inches over the next 6 hours, and certainly could have some flooding problems there, so that's just interesting to note. This is from the live pressure sensor out here. We're sitting at about 1,004 millibars currently right now, so we had the pressure down about 1,003. It rose to 1,004 millibars. Still 87 degrees, so very warm still in portions of the central Florida area, but once we get more of this precip shield onshore, the nocturnal convection, the diurnal max, we will certainly start to see more convection fire, and that could lead to more prolonged flooding problems as these rain bands from Dorian will train down across the area. So also, again, the live weather data is always up and running, and it will be running for probably about the next 12 hours as Dorian makes its closest approach, and then the live weather data will be offline until the next mission that we do, if there is another one. So we're going to be continuing to monitor Dorian tonight. Again, it's making its closest approach to Florida, watching for any wobbles that might bring more of the stronger winds inland a little bit, and watching for any flooding potential and anything else. So again, those are the main takeaways for tonight. Again, I am positioned right here in Orlando, awaiting what any impacts Hurricane Dorian brings, and I will continue to update you all throughout the evening on that. That is probably going to do it for me this evening. I might be back at 11 o'clock. We will just have to see. Otherwise than that, have a safe rest of your evening. I am Mike Romelli, and have a great evening.